The USS Excelsior, NCC 2000C, last of the Great Dominion War dreadnoughts constructed, first in the hearts and minds of the men and women of Task Force 38. The Excelsior was once a ship of legends: Grin, Duval, Underwood, Riku. From 2375 to 2379, she and her intrepid crew were the first line of defense for the Iconian Gateway that had opened Starfleet's territory to a hard-won sector of the Delta Quadrant. 2 years ago, short of crew, facing Federation-wide force redistribution, the Excelsior was temporarily mothballed. 1 year later, a Borg offensive pushed Starfleet's Delta forces right back through the gateway to the Alpha Quadrant. High-ranking veterans of the Excelsior scattered throughout Starfleet's leadership saw this and came to a single conclusion: 2 years is far too long.
Space, the final frontier. These are the voyages of the Starship Excelsior. Her ongoing mission: to explore strange new worlds, to seek out new life and new civilizations, to boldly go where no one has gone before. Starring Elise Krawick as Captain Rachel Cortez.
Larry Phelan
as Lieutenant Commander Alcar Dovan.
Ben Randall as Alexander Lorok.
Michael Liebman as Alex Roll.
And Caitlin Haney as Asuka Yubari.
Today's episode, The Excelsior returns, Act 1, There You Are. USS Excelsior Ready Room. Time, 1300 hours.
Captain's log, stardate 59932.1. It has been a long wait in dock. The way the refit crews are working, I fear we won't launch until Christmas, or even New Year's Eve. I have no desire to remember 2382 as the year we didn't launch. Still, with a name like Excelsior, we have to get it right. It would be a shame if Starfleet decided that placing the first officer from a small ship like the Mercury in command of a ship with this much legacy was a mistake after all. Hopefully, as the remainder of our key personnel come aboard and engineering gets our last critical systems online, we'll get a clearer picture of where we stand. End log. Come in. Crewman Adow, just the person I wanted to see. How goes the battle?
Battle?
The battle to get everything up and running, crewman.
We're done the upgrades and diagnostics. Most of my crew's now transporting back to the starbase.
Windows cleaned? Hull polished?
That all, sir?
That's all, crewman.
Something wrong, Captain?
Don't you hate maintenance crews? They come aboard a ship, think they're God's gift to engineering, and then take 2 months to do routine upgrades. I'm pretty sure our own engineering teams could have done the work themselves.
But that's not procedure, Captain. Besides, they wouldn't have anything to do without ships like ours. They have to tinker with something or they'll start taking apart the starbase.
Indeed.
Well, at least they're done now.
Well, there is that. 24 hours and they'll all finally be gone.
Now we can start fixing all the things they messed with.
Commander Dovan, I relieve you.
I stand relieved. Enjoy Alpha Shift, Captain.
Oh, I will. Good day, Commander. Bridge to engineering. How is it down there, Lieutenant Lorak?
Good morning, Captain. You want the long story or the short one?
Ada, I'll be sure that ODN wiring is secure.
What, on the weapons relays? What's the point?
What makes you say that?
This ship is hitting the Delta Quadrant, Harkless. It'd be a nasty piece of real estate, that.
Well, they'll have all of Task Force 38 to back them up.
That's Borg space, Harkless. Even with our upgrades, this ship don't stand a chance in a fight. What we should be working on is the engines. They're gonna need to dance real fast at the Borg catch.
Do you have a problem with this ODN conduit, subcrew?
Oh, no, sir.
You have a problem, mister?
I don't think a junior grade lieutenant should be chief engineer aboard a ship as grand as the Excelsior. One of the most prestigious ships in the whole fleet, and they give it to you, of all plain Janes?
I'm sure Captain Cortez has her reasons, crewman. Now, if you don't want me to have to put you on report for those comments, I'd suggest you get the hell out of my engineering bay. You've just been reassigned to waste reclamation.
I do have to finish.
Speaking? Or else you're going to be on report, is that clear?
Yes, sir.
Anything to add, crewman Harkless?
No, sir. Nothing to add, sir.
Carry on, crewman. Sorry about that, Captain. Minor problem down here. Anyhow, about the holodeck relays.
In the first officer's quarters, Lieutenant Commander Alcar Dovan was working hard on a duty roster he had promised to Captain Cortez before the next day's senior staff meeting. So hard was he working that next day's meeting had slipped into today's meeting without him even noticing. At 0100, however, he finally looked away from his work long enough to yawn.
What the hell am I doing here? 2 years on Galt. First day back, I demand to be assigned to Task Force 38. I'm just completely unreasonable. And they make me an XO on the finest ship in the fleet. You know, better question might be, what the hell were they thinking? After all, I'm getting the best of both worlds. Exploration, wonder, awe, and not a frontline transfer order within 70,000 light years. You're talking to yourself, Alcar. All right, back to work. You have a captain to impress.
Now that he was back in Starfleet, Lieutenant Commander Dovan was rather surprised at how many little things around the ship, the insignia, the nameless instance he passed in the hallway, the distinct scent of Starfleet Raktajino, how much it all reminded him of the long minutes and days and weeks of a war that had ended 7 years ago. The Great Dominion War. He had to admit that it was shaking him more than he would like. Even the simple beep of a communications call could be a shock.
An incident report has been filed. Would you like to review it?
Incident report? Why not? Play it, computer.
Commander Dovan, my name is Kinash Adao. I'm assigned to the refit teams currently completing the overhaul of your engineering systems. This report regards an incident that took place in engineering today at 1300 hours. This afternoon, I was performing routine maintenance around the secondary
halt
ODN
playback.
node when...
Convert the remainder of the report to text and display on this screen. Kinasha Dow. I've heard that name somewhere. Huh. Alright. Borg space, blah, blah, blah. Chief engineer, yada yada. Cruel and unusual. Subcrew? Subcrew? Is that even a word? Sounds like my compliments are due to our chief engineer on handling this. Computer, append the following comment to this report. Quote, "Can't say I blame him." Unquote. Now stamp it and refile it. Now, computer, maybe you can help me. Where have I heard this name, Adao, before?
Lieutenant Commander Alcar Dovan on Stardate 59931.7 approved the transfer of crewman Kinash Adao from Starbase 911 refit crew to USS Excelsior Engineering Section.
Duh! I knew I wasn't gonna like that. Thank you, computer.
Transporter room 3 to the executive officer.
Dovan here.
Sir, I don't mean to bother you, but, we're still having a pretty serious malfunction down here.
All your molybdenum components are rematerializing as neobium. Yes, I heard. Someone will be down right away.
If I may, sir, when? Chief Terrell said he reported this during last shift, and...
I understand, Chief. It's been a bit busy up here.
Yes, sir.
Dovan out. It's been a bit busy. Yeah, and I forgot for 6 hours. I can't let that happen again. Dovan to Rock? Blasted consonants. Dovan to Laura... Dovan to the chief engineer.
Lorak here, sir.
Lieutenant, I was going to apologize for waking you, but I see that that's not necessary.
Not a problem, sir. Just burning the midnight oil.
Excellent. I'd like to see you in Transporter Bay 3 on the double.
Yes, sir.
And Lieutenant, bring your little black bag.
I'm on my way.
Acknowledged. Dovan out.
It took Lorak 20 minutes to get there. His boss was already on the scene.
You smell that?
Only a little. And given that Bolians have a much better sense of smell than Trill, I'm surprised that you do.
I was a transporter operator for a while. Not much to do except stand around and wait for something to happen. Something I can do about it?
Yes. Chief Lorth here has informed me that our restocking effort has been delayed due to the fact that all the molybdenum elements are rematerializing as neobium on the pad.
I'll get right on it, sir. Smells like a problem with the molecular imaging scanners.
Smells, sir?
Yes, Chief. Smells. A bit like burnt plasma conduit mixed with the unique fragrance of a malfunctioning self-sealing stem bolt with a melted interface component.
I see, sir.
Don't worry yourself, Chief. It's well documented that officers have improved senses of smell. You've got this well in hand then, Lieutenant?
Yes, sir. Should have the grid online in about 47 minutes.
About? 47? Try not to be too specific, Lieutenant. It'll look bad if you're off. Oh, and one more thing. I'm finishing up the duty roster. Any preferences?
There's one person I think would be a great fit for the Chief Engineer's job. Lieutenant Junior Grade, young, remarkable engineering skills, brilliant horror novel writer, great looks.
I think I see where this is going. And you'll want to keep Adao in waste reclamation, I hope?
You know about that? What, did she go over my head or something?
Not at all, Lieutenant. I'm the first officer of the ship. I know everything.
Bridge to Commander Dovan.
Dovan here.
You asked to be informed when Commander Helder's shuttle was arriving. The Mendez has just been cleared for final docking procedures.
Thank you, Lieutenant. Dovan out. Well, it seems I'm late. You'll excuse me, gentlemen? I know everything. Well, perhaps. Except how to run a starship. Now, how to get that transporter stench out of my nose. Smells like rotten eggs flecked with Jem'Hadar bits. Where the hell did that thought come from?
Sorry, sir?
Oh, Doctor, Sharp. Nothing. Just one of those stray thoughts there.
So not nothing.
You have a sharp tongue, Doctor. Watch out for it now, Mr. Rawl. What exactly are the two of you doing anyhow?
Lieutenant Rawl has just kindly offered to escort me to my quarters now that I'm aboard.
And carrying your things, I note. Strange, isn't it, how all the senior officers are coming aboard in the dead of night? Well, a pleasant evening to you both.
Yes, sir. Good night, sir.
Thank you again, sir, for doing this. It's nice not to be the little short woman dragging her things through the hall for once.
It's my pleasure, ma'am. You have to keep in shape on the Special Ops team, after all.
That's right, you're Special Operations. I'd forgotten. But not the team leader, as I understand.
No, ma'am. That'd be Lieutenant Leo Amara, and he's busy right now trying to get the captain to keep our team separate from the Marine Squad hierarchy. In the meantime, now that Ensign McBride's assignment has been canceled, I'm covering tactical, and Lieutenant Amara is Chief of Security until we can find a replacement. So Special Operations is getting far too much free time, while the Marines are busy training.
I didn't realize that this was one of the starships with a Marine detachment board.
Really? I would have thought that would be a little hard to miss on the basic info sheet.
I just applied for whatever starship duty I could get. It's good for my career, so I'm told. I wasn't looking too closely when I was invited to join a crew. Look, Lieutenant, I'm aware my rank is lower than yours, but I'd appreciate it if you spread the word around Marine country that I'm less than amused by careless injuries, and I have absolutely no respect for preserving honorable combat wounds or anything of the like. And there's nothing I hate more than repeat customers.
Is that an order, Ensign?
Of course not, sir. I can't give you orders. I can, however, withhold painkillers or any manner of other useful medical arts whenever I please without anyone becoming the wiser.
Sounds like we have a bargain.
Then I think our departments are going to get along splendidly.
I certainly hope so. We're here. These are going to be your quarters, ma'am.
And my name's already on the door. Again, sir, 1,000 thanks for doing this.
It was a pleasure. Good night, Doctor.
Good night, sir.
The next morning, Captain Cortez stood in the observation lounge. Having just dismissed a young lieutenant, she stood, hands folded behind her back, looking out the window at the bustle of the space dock lattices. She was waiting for her next appointment. She did not wait for very long.
Sir?
Mr. Amara.
Yes, sir.
Captain will do fine, Lieutenant.
Sorry, Captain.
Space dock is an incredible place. So many worker bees, so many components and lights, all just cogs and part of one great machine, all of it, from the simple metal floating outside to the efforts, the dreams, the work that went into this. All of it is going into just one thing, getting us out there. You have something for me, Lieutenant?
Second Lieutenant Leo Amara reporting for duty.
Your orders? You'll want to present these to the Marine Commander before you settle in.
Sir, I mean Captain, that's actually something I wanted to talk to you about.
I don't believe there's anything to discuss. Special Operations falls under the umbrella of the Marine Division.
With respect, Captain, I haven't been a Marine for quite some time now.
I'm well aware of your service record, Second Lieutenant. However, my decision is made.
Captain?
You will still be in command of your unit, but you will report to the Marine Commander. Dismissed. Something else, Lieutenant?
I just wanted to convey how unhappy I am with your decision.
Lieutenant, I am aware that you had a certain amount of latitude in your last assignment, but that's over, and you'd better get used to it. I won't tolerate elitist attitudes from any division on this ship. Now, do we have a problem?
No, sir.
Dismissed.
Bridge to Cortez.
Go ahead.
Admiral Parker is on a secure channel for you, Captain.
Put her through here, Lieutenant. Admiral, What can I do for you, sir?
Captain, I trust you're settling in aboard the Excelsior.
Just looking for a place to hang my pictures, sir.
Normally Admiral Tenson would be speaking to you, but with the Tornado on assignment, I'll be the one briefing you on your first mission.
Go ahead, sir.
You've probably given some thought to why you were assigned to the Excelsior.
It had crossed my mind, Admiral. I'm sure there were a great many candidates who might have come before me.
Not to mince words, but you weren't even on the initial list of command for the Excelsior. You were high on the list for the Atlanta.
Well, I would have expected something along the lines of a New Orleans-class ship. What shifted me from the Atlanta to the Excelsior?
Part of it was this mission. Part of it we'll go into at another time.
If I may, Admiral, are you referring to the Anbar?
Captain, you will not refer to that in an open channel. Is that understood?
Yes, sir.
We've been waiting some time to send a ship to a world called Valandria. Are you familiar with it?
Mildly. They have warp drive, but both of our first contact attempts have been rebuffed. They're fairly close to the Iconian Gateway, aren't they?
They are. And, after last year's Borg attack, our analysts have determined that Valandria is in a strategically valuable location. We think it's time to make another try at establishing diplomatic relations, and you, Captain, are on a very short list of potential candidates to meet with their premier.
I'm sorry, Admiral, but how so?
You're a very well-established combat officer, Captain. You have an air of it in your attitude, and that's important to the Valandrin. They're not a diplomatic people. They respect strength and fight to establish status. Our misunderstanding of this is why our first mission failed. The Excelsior, however, is a Sovereign-class starship. It will be a massive show of strength, and they will respect what our captain has to say.
I'm still a little confused about my part in this. There are a lot of seasoned captains whose experiences eclipse my own.
Valandrin society is strongly matriarchal. Although their males are strong warriors, they only acknowledge a female as a leader. A detail that derailed our second contact mission. Out of the female candidates for this mission, you were at the top of the list. You have the deep space experience, an excellent combat record, and your profile shows that you take a strong position where you need to. That's exactly what we're looking for in this mission.
So, essentially, my gender secured me this assignment?
You know what they say, Captain. Don't look a gift horse in the mouth. You're a skilled officer, and you'll make an excellent captain if you don't get hung up on the details. The Valandria situation got you this assignment. Now make the most of it.
Yes, sir.
Good luck, Captain. Parker out.
General Brahms, I didn't expect to hear from you so soon.
Just wanted to check in before we got underway. And Admiral Parker's transmission made an excellent piggyback feed. I assume she bought the entire Valandria story.
Completely. And before you ask, Lieutenant Yubari came aboard early this morning. She's already begun setting up.
Good, good.
General, if I may, I think she'd be much better able to carry out her mission if she knew entirely what it was about.
No,
I'd like to...
Captain. I'm sorry. We simply can't trust any information about the Anbar to anyone without the proper clearances. The longer Lieutenant Yubari believes she's merely doing routine surveillance, and as long as your crew believes the Valandria cover story, the better. For all of us.
I see. Is there anything else, General?
No, Captain. Like I said, just checking in. Good hunting.
Thank you, General.
Brahms out.
Chief Engineer Alex Lorak, after a long, hard night chasing bugs in the refit Excelsior systems, had allowed himself 18 minutes to sleep before dealing with anything else. Then it would be time for breakfast.
That's what I get for not paying close enough attention when a diagnostic clearly shows feedback loop. Circuit 44. A big mess. 2 hours backlog. And I'll finish this complaint when I'm more awake. Oof. Computer, give me a...
Please restate request.
I'll take my time. That okay with you?
Please restate the question.
Forget about it, computer. Just give me a Jumja stick. Nothing like the jar and candy to keep you on your feet. Computer, identify the most recently replicated item at the replicator in my quarters.
One standard Bajoran Jumja stick.
Forget it. I have to get to work. Lure up to engineering.
Crewman Harkless here, sir. What can I do for you?
Who's worked on the deckfall replicator systems within the past few days?
Let me check, sir. The duty log shows several refit subcrews were working on it. The most recent one within the past 12 hours.
I don't suppose crewman Ado was on any of those subcrews, was she?
Actually, sir, she was. She led the most recent team.
Acknowledged. Thank you, crewman. Lurik out. Oh, and thus does the Excelsior's first combat action begin. Deck 16.
Wait! Hold that lift!
Computer, hold.
Thanks, Lieutenant. Deck 1. But not until we drop off our chief engineer. Lieutenant Lorrock, you'd better quickly get aboard the Smile Shuttle, or else Judah, the Starfleet Otter, might come and try to cheer you up.
Yes, sir.
Chief, I hate to add to your workload, but look, have you ever heard of Terran juice?
No, sir.
Well, I was talking to one of the Maquis from Voyager a few years after they got back. He told me about this drink. It's an Inaran delicacy, and he said it was about as smooth a vehicle for caffeine as you would ever find. Possibly the best thing he drank in the Delta Quadrant. Now, unfortunately, I left Starfleet before I had the chance to download the replicator pattern, and when I got home I was unpleasantly surprised to find that all Voyager files had been classified to civilians. So today, now that I'm finally back and I'm actually going to be in the Delta Quadrant for the first time, I thought it was finally time to try it out.
It was the replicator, wasn't it?
Tasted like paint thinner.
You're not the only one, sir. Pretty much everything on decks 4 and 7 is erratic. This diagnostic actually showed that 5 and 6 are out completely, though I doubt that. Normally we'd have 3 engineering teams working on this, but what with the launch coming up?
You've got just the one team.
No, sir. Every member of engineering is assigned to other duties right now, and we've all been working double shifts for 3 days straight.
So what exactly is the chief engineer doing working on something with such a low priority?
I'm off duty, sir.
Excuse me?
I'm off duty, sir, so
You're an excellent actor then, Mr. Lorrock. If I didn't know better, I'd say you'd just worked through the entire night.
Yes, sir. That's exactly what...
Lieutenant, depending on her orders, the Excelsior could have to launch at any time on a moment's notice. Aside from combat, there is absolutely no time when I more value an engineer at the top of his game than when we were moving this kilometer-long glorified tin can through an opening the size of my planet's capital city with just a couple decameters between us and pulverization. Call it flight anxiety, but you are now off duty until gamma shift. You are to spend the time between then and now unconscious, preferably sleeping, but phaser-stunned if necessary.
But
That's an order.
Yes, sir.
Well then, shouldn't you be getting back to your quarters?
Actually, sir, there's one more thing I really have to do. Then I'll get to my quarters. I promise.
It's a Tao, isn't it?
I don't know what you're talking about, sir.
Lieutenant, make it painful.
Do what to who, sir?
She owes me a glass of Terran juice.
In addition to being an excellent engineer, Alex Lorrock was also an accomplished computer programmer. Once he was into the engineering computer, he worked quickly. This was fortunate as he closed the program just barely in time.
Well, speak of the parasite.
Crewman Kinash Adal reporting for shift command duty, sir.
I stand relieved, crewman. Congratulations on your transfer from the reefer crew to the Excelsior proper. Computer, log crewman Ado as the on-duty engineer. Transfer command of the primary control console to her.
Acknowledged. Current on-duty engineer registered as crewman Kinash Adao.
Thank you, sir. I'll get to work right quick.
You might want to check on the replicator systems on decks 4 through 7. They were showing some interesting fluctuations earlier. A level 5 diagnostic should do it.
Right straight. I can handle it, sir. You can go back to your quarters now.
Lorak left, but did not go back to his quarters. Instead, he ducked into the chief engineer's office, situated immediately next to the main engineering doors, and spooled up the internal cameras. He wanted to see this. A peculiar thing about Starfleet computer systems is that they have the capability of identifying any crew member using them. They can then instantaneously reconfigure every button to match that crew member's favorite control scheme. Panels move, colors change, and controls appear and disappear, all in the wink of an eye. Crewman Adao is about to discover the true extent of these capabilities, rather unpleasantly.
Crewman Harkless, I'm about to run a level 5 diagnostic of the replicator system. It should only take a minute, but make sure nobody shuts down internal sensors while I'm doing it.
Yes, sir.
Initiating. What?
As Adao had moved to begin to scan, Lorak's program itself activated upon detecting her. An instant before she touched the panel, the entire console reconfigured itself so that her finger was resting over a play button, which she then pressed. But every time she got her finger close to the cancel button, it would vanish and reappear halfway across the control board, and much to Lieutenant Lorak's amusement, more heads turned to watch her with every lunge.
Sir, do you need some help with that?
Well spotted, cadet.
Yes, sir.
Time for the entrance. Problem, crewman?
Everything is under control, sir. The situation has been dealt with.
Glad we agree. Try to keep it down, will you?
Junior Lieutenant Alex Lorak had entered engineering as a hard worker and left as its chief.
Good morning, Bridge.
You've got to make sure that the chair spins right.
Oh, Commander Helder. I didn't know you'd come aboard.
Good morning, sir. I assume you're my new XO?
You assume correctly. Hope you slept well last night.
Not especially. I was a bit distracted, but I'm still fit for duty. What can a freshly assigned Chief Flight Control Officer do around here, Commander?
At the moment, you could tell me where Captain Cortez is. I don't see her.
Oh, she's in her ready room. Anything important?
Only to her, me, and one particular crew member. Thank you, Commander.
Anytime. Now, how are we coming here?
Welcome to Tenacityville. Population? You.
Come.
Captain.
Commander, I trust you're settling in all right. What can I do for you?
I figured that as long as the duty roster's done, you might like to have a look before the 1400 staff meeting. Dr. Sharp's medical team isn't set in stone yet, though. I was only able to speak with her this morning, and she'd like 24 hours to get to know her team before making any decisions.
That's fine with me. Anything else?
Well, I just put our chief engineer to bed. It's my judgment that he be allowed to rest until Gamma Shift. Of course, having known a few engineers in my life, I doubt he'll do any sleeping. But I don't know. It's just a little... May I speak candidly, Captain?
Granted.
Do you really think a junior lieutenant has the Starfleet experience to run an engine room? I mean, I like the kid fine. He seems like a good leader, and one day he'll be an excellent engineer. But here and now, he can barely keep his eyes open for the 30 hours straight. How many times has he been in an engine room during a combat situation, much less commanded during combat? I suppose what I'm asking is, what was it about Mr. Lorrock that recommended him to you? And am I completely out of line here?
Commander, would you like to have a seat? Well, first things first. Why don't we rephrase your question to something a little more candid? You'd like to know how the hell somebody like Alexander ended up running the engine room on one of the most powerful ships in Starfleet. You know how many candidates I had for chief engineer? 32, ranging from junior lieutenants to full commanders. I don't know if it's just the class or the name of the ship, but people threw their hats in. I even had a Lieutenant Barnett from the Enterprise get a recommendation.
Doesn't that validate my question, Captain? Why Lieutenant Junior Grade Alex Lorrock?
Character, Commander. You can have the finest personnel in Starfleet, but if they can't work with you, you're not getting the best. I looked at my personnel on what they would offer the Excelsior. Alexander knew the USS Steadfast from stem to stern, not by reading specs, but by crawling through every Jeffries tube in order to get to know the ship. And every ship is different. The Enterprise, the Lexington, the Excelsior, we're all sovereign class, built to spec, but none of us are the same. And Alexander is an engineer who will spend every waking minute courting the Excelsior until he knows her every quirk. You see what I mean? I build my crews on people, not records. Anyone can sound wonderful with a good recommendation and a few years' experience. I'm looking for people who are ready to make that break from good officer to great one. No rest for the wicked, I'm afraid. Come. Commander Helder, please come in. Is there anything else, Mr. Dovan?
No, Captain. And thank you.
Of course. Dismissed.
I'll see you at 1400 then.
Mr. Helder, I'd been hoping to speak with you. Although we have quite a few Marine pilots, including one...
At 1400 hours, Captain Cortez was sitting at the head of the conference table, looking out the window at the dry dock space frame wrapped around the Excelsior like a full-body cast. She had never been crazy about sitting in one place for too long, and they had been docked for decidedly too long. Fortunately, this conference would resolve exactly how much more of this she would have to endure.
Sorry I'm late. Some hazardous medical supplies needed careful supervision in sickbay.
It's all right, Doctor. We were just about to get started. I trust work on board is progressing well?
Alcar had come in carrying a small, disorganized mountain of pads, each with their own piece of ship-critical information on them, from the most recent modifications to that blasted duty roster to a detailed inventory of the ship's food stores and long-term survivability projections, should they for some reason be cut off from food resupply, from a brief discussion concerning the calibration of the matter-antimatter ratio to a rather lengthy dissertation on the continuing paint job Starbase work crews D through G were overseeing underneath the port nacelle, from Lieutenant Alex Roll's most recent tactical readiness report, which Dovan could swear Roll was putting out at a rate exceeding 3 a day, to a few notes about the diplomacy staff he had taken while chatting with the affable Ensign Rick Hunter on the way in. Now that they were all laid out in front of him, however, and he could see the great big picture that all these minute details combined to create, he saw that his answer was simple. Was work on board progressing well?
Yes, ma'am.
Very succinct, Commander. The main reason I called this meeting is to set up a time frame and to talk about our first assignment. But first things first, are your departments and the ship ready to launch? Captain Hastings, you first. For those who haven't met him, this is Marine Captain John Hastings, in charge of the Marine and Special Operations Divisions aboard the Excelsior.
Thank you, Captain. Yes, both of my divisions are present and accounted for, and I like what I've seen so far. Ideally, we'll have time for small unit battle drills so each Marine becomes familiar with his teammates, but they're good to go as is if needed.
Chief Engineer Lorok.
Captain, the Excelsior is one of the finest ships I can imagine serving on. All of our primary life support systems are at full capacity, and judging by the look of the diagnostics, we won't have to resupply for the expected 15 years. Main deflector and drive systems register is ready. The warp core is operating at full strength. EPS grids look fine, tractor beams are fully functional. In short, the Excelsior is as close to perfect as she's going to get. Engineering is ready at your order.
I see. Lieutenant Junior Grade Alex Rawl, Temporary Tactical Officer. He's also XO of our Special Operations Unit, but for now, Lieutenant, the tactical report if you would.
Thank you, ma'am. Shield grid diagnostics show maximum operational efficiency. The phaser emitters are all functional and have been tested by the dock crew, although I would like to conduct a live fire test after we leave port. Our torpedo bays are full and launchers are now fully operational. All the armories are stocked and secured, and Lieutenant Amara is seeing to it that security personnel are conducting daily training exercises.
Dr. Sharp?
I really have only had a chance to take a quick look at the medical situation, but it looks great so far. I'd like to see all the new crew members for medical checks. My staff has done a fair percentage of the crew who have been here longer than a month, but we still have about 100 or so who haven't got around to coming in yet. A lot of you are on my list. I know you're all very busy, but make some time. I mean it.
And I'll support the doctor every step of the way on that. Get your med work done, gentlemen. Ensign Rick Hunter, Diplomatic Liaison.
Thank you, Captain. My department, we're in great shape. We can handle anything from treaty negotiations between implacable enemies to a royal wedding.
Factoring everything in, Captain, I think we'll be underway in 72 hours.
Then I want to schedule the launch for the day after tomorrow. Use any resources you need to finish off the preparations.
Dovan opened his mouth to point out that was only 48 hours, then realized that the captain probably was not making an error in arithmetic.
Our destination is the Valandrian system. We've been assigned to meet with the Valandran and attempt to create a productive diplomatic relationship. I trust you've all reviewed the supplemental material I transmitted to you concerning their race? Good. Their proximity to the gateway to the Alpha Quadrant makes them prime candidates as allies. I don't need to explain the advantages of having friends around the gateway. Even friends like the Valandran, who might not meet our conventional standards for potential allies. It's a pretty straightforward mission. Get in, make contact, do some diplomacy, get out. Questions or concerns?
I've got a couple questions, Captain. First, if I know Starfleet, they've run at least 300 simulations of this mission before sending us on it. Not that I put too much trust in the brass hats, but according to them, what's our odds of success? And more importantly, given that the first two missions to Valandria ended in weapons fire, what's the odds that we end up in a combat situation?
Given the Valandrian inclination to violence, there's almost a 100% chance of combat. It's lethal combat that we wish to avoid. Lieutenant Rawl, I want all of our weapons set to disable, not destroy. I don't want to use torpedoes unless we run out of other options, so warm up the phasers.
Aye, sir.
Starfleet is remaining conservative on our odds of success. While our primary mission objective is simply to establish diplomatic contact, there's not much middle ground in the field of Valandrian diplomacy. In the final analysis, it's just too hard to predict.
Thank you. Second, worst case scenario, I assume, is that we somehow manage to start a war with these people. What does that do to Task Force 38's long-term operations around the Delta Quadrant?
High-minded curiosity, Mr. Dovan? Or are you planning to set off an intergalactic incident?
Only the former, I'm afraid. What I mean is, just how strategically critical is Valandria, and how much do we stand to lose?
Their position is strategically beneficial, but hardly a necessity. If things were to turn hostile, Valandria is far enough away from the gateway that, at their level of technology, they'd hardly pose a critical threat. However, gaining an enemy on our doorstep is not what we're trying to accomplish here.
Finally, what is the absolute worst thing you can say to a Valandrian? Just my high-minded curiosity again.
You are planning to start a war, aren't you? Next question.
This mission seems like a bit of a milk run, doesn't it? I mean, we're a Sovereign-class starship and we're on third contact duty? Although, I suppose it could be fun. What do we know about their women?
They're lizards.
You realize that Valandrian women are as cold-blooded as the Gorn, and would certainly tear off the head of any male impertinent enough to proposition one of them.
A point I'd like to expand on, Captain, if I may. Thank you. I have prepared a brief that I will download to each department head. I think it would be wise to read it. One of the reasons I've been assigned to this ship is in order for me to assist with the negotiations. I can advise only, however, since the Valandrian will refuse to discuss anything with an inferior, such as my own male self.
So it's speak when spoken to for us men, then?
Exactly. The Excelsior is one of the most advanced ships in the fleet, and one hell of a show of strength to the Valandrian leadership. Diplomacy is all small steps, of course, and our first step will be getting them to accept us and allow us to meet with them. I gather they have never been particularly interested in outside species, so that will be half the battle. And I mean that proverbially. I hope. If that's all, then dismissed. Let's get this ship into its natural habitat. Open space.
Before you all go back to being cogs in the machine, I'd like to invite you to a game of Caddiscot. My quarters, 2100 tomorrow. As long as you're not on duty, that is. Now that we're in the Delta Quadrant Defense Force, it seems appropriate to play a Nigean game, wouldn't you say? I can cook Nigean, too.
I'm sure it will be a most enlightening experience. I'll join you, I think.
Count me in, Commander.
I will decline. I do not play games.
Wow, what was that? Excuse me. Oh, and yes, I'll be there.
Well, that's enough to run the game, so anyone else who wants to show up, feel free.
Set intermix ratio to 1.0. Prepare to initialize the warp chamber on my mark.
Good morning, Captain.
So it is, Mr. Dovan. So it is.
3, 2, 1. Mark! I need 50% capacity now, and gradually bring her up to 100. Crewman, get that magnetic constrictor aligned in the next 10 seconds, or you will be personally informing the captain why we failed pre-launch startup check.
Yes, sir.
This is Starfleet Operations. The Excelsior is clear for departure. Good journey.
Mr. Rawl, acknowledge Starbase 911.
Yes, Captain. Starbase 911. We acknowledge and are beginning impulse engine main startup sequence.
You three, good work on the dilithium chamber. Monitor it for the slightest misalignment as we pass port 1. Excelsior hasn't gone over light speed in 3 years. If we have errors, they'll come right now. Captain, this is engineering. You have full power at your discretion.
Very well, Lieutenant. Prepare to undock.
Aye, sir.
Mr. Helder, switch to internal power and then clear all moorings.
Aye, Captain. Clearing moorings.
Aft thrusters full.
Entering aft thrusters full, sir.
Fire up the backup inertial dampers and engage helm control interlinks.
All seconds
Returning to port. Understood.
We're clear. Full power to impulse.
We are clear and free to navigate.
Course heading, Captain?
Set course 160, Mark 205, warp 3.
Course laid in.
Commander, you're grinning.
Am I?
Mr. Helder, engage. Confirm all systems green.
The board shows all systems green, Captain.
ETA to Valandrian system, 7 days, 5 hours.
Thank you, Lieutenants. Cortez to engineering.
Lorok here, sir.
Good work, Lieutenant. My compliments to your entire section.
Thank you, Captain.
Cortez out.
Sir, all sections have reported in. Warp drive is running smoothly, but we need to adjust the plasma flow conduits to get them exactly right.
No need to worry, Ensign. The captain won't be expecting a perfect run on our first warp jump. She probably won't push us above warp 6 for a few days. It's not as if we're in any major hurry, is it?
No, sir. I suppose not.
Well then, let's see what this fine ship can. Ensign Takala, verify that we've entered high warp.
Verified. Current velocity is warp 9.74.
I guess the captain isn't one to hold back, is she?
Indeed not. I shall never understand the human predisposition for piloting vessels at unnecessarily high velocities.
Maybe so, but she is half Vulcan, you know.
Oh?
Answering warp 9.74, and it looks like engineering will be ready to give us 9.8 by 1300. New ETA to Valandria, 3 days, 1 hour.
Very good. Mr. Dovan, I want long-range scans of the area and the Valandrian system as we approach, but that can wait until the end of your shift.
You're not going to stay?
My ship just launched, Commander. I'm going to the Delta Lounge to commemorate the occasion.
First Officer's Log, Stardate 59935.7. Now that I'm the executive officer, I've really got to get into the habit of making these. It's been 2 days since we left Starbase 911, 2 days since passing through the Iconian Gateway, 2 days we've been in the Delta Quadrant, and really what I'm mostly feeling is surprise. I always expected the DQ to feel different somehow, perhaps a bit more vibrant, maybe a bit sharper colored than before, but what it really is liberating. I spent my first 17 years in Starfleet moving from one battle group to another, but here, there isn't a political boundary or a war front as far as the eye can see. Deep down, I guess I was waiting for the Borg to drop on top of Starbase 900 the moment we got on this side of the gateway. Despite my demand to serve out here on the frontier, I was still thinking like a soldier. Instead, the most action I've seen was an explosion of an EPS conduit yesterday due to phaser feedback. And today, all I have to do is get the Assistant Chief Science Officer to show up for duty and do the scans Captain Cortez wants. Computer, is Chief Petty Officer Pichik Rota still in his quarters?
Affirmative.
Then why isn't he answering his door? Oh, unless of course he's sleeping.
Unknown.
Computer, give me a security override on this thing. Authorization Doven Quator Septum. What the?
Chief Petty Officer Arden Pichik Rota's quarters were somewhat eccentric. For starters, they were fairly dark.
Computer, lights.
That operation is not permitted.
What? I'm the first officer.
That operation is not permitted.
Beyond the gloom, it was a very strange room. Yes, there was a door, windows as well, although seeing out them was rather difficult. The construction and furnishing, too, was quite generic, although darkened to only 5% standard lighting. The major sticking point was that all around the room, in odd places like windows or corners, ceilings, mantels in front of windows, on the edges of desks or on chairs, there were computer monitors. Alcar could only assume that the large dark shapes strewn equally randomly around the room were hardware components. The monitors, though, were the real eye-catchers, not only because they were the only things in the room that were well lit enough for Dovan to see them. They were all in different sizes, some relatively small, some bordering on huge, but every one of them showed data, information, unsorted and infinite, streaming across at near incomprehensible speed. Some were formatted according to Starfleet Elcar's protocols, others with a strange, rippling, pale blue operating format that seemed designed for exactly this kind of work, and others with scripts from a half-dozen other familiar and unfamiliar empires, Klingon, Romulan, Bajoran, and others. The screens were constantly changing, reorganizing to accommodate new formats.
Like I said, weird room.
While Dovan was still taking all this in, a tall silhouette rose from in front of one of the hardware components near the windows. The figure removed something from the sides of its head, then stepped towards Dovan.
I'm sorry, Alcar. Did you ring for me?
Into the light stepped a long, bony creature with a feline, even feral, and completely hairless face, and long, slender ears that looked 3 times longer and 10 times sharper than a Vulcan's. A Nuncian, in the flesh. Around his neck was a pair of standard-issue engineering earmuffs.
Excuse me, Chief Petty Officer?
I don't understand, Alcar. Did you or didn't you ring for me? Also, you may call me Arden.
Mr. Pichikrota, are you aware of Starfleet rank protocols?
Would you care to sit down? I've always thought some Starfleet rules to be mindlessly restrictive. I'd hoped, knowing your attitude, that you would share some of my views. The drink is for you.
Ironello? They could never get this for me uncalled. How did you know? Yeah. And what exactly do you know about my attitude?
Sometimes I think that between the pointless and rather irritating episodes of senseless violent rage, the Klingons are onto something. For one, their leaders kill bureaucrats whenever they get the chance. Ours increase their funding.
Excuse me?
Chief Pachikrota's words were quoted directly from Dovan's private personnel file, a flagrant breach of ship's security.
I realized that I had to get back to my career path of being on starships when they explode. That's why medals should be abolished. They tell people like Inspector 98 that people like me...
That's enough. Okay, Arden, you may have a point. Maybe I am letting this new responsibility dampen my fun-loving, freewheeling sense of rebellion a little too much. Call me Alcar.
A characteristically speedy change of heart, Alcar.
That brings me to my next point, Arden. To be blunt, how the devil do you have access to my personnel file?
Come on over here. I'm sorry I didn't hear you at first. These workstations can, if faulty, generate a sound wave quite capable of damaging me. I needed the ear coverings as a precaution.
And why weren't you in one of the science labs working on the scans the captain asked for?
I was, from here. As you can see, we're still having some issues extending the Excelsior sensor net far enough to scan the Valandrian system.
I can also see that schematic of our sensor department is supposed to be protected from access by other crew members through several layers of security, but I'll let that go. Do go on.
So, since I can't get the scans using our net, instead I have these.
This... Chief, this is a short-range scan data. We're still out of long-range distance. How did you...
Really, Alcar? You've got bigger problems than figuring out the Nuncian way of life.
Do I sense another quote from my autobiography coming up?
Quite the contrary, my friend. For the last 3 minutes, there's been an unidentified intruder moving in the direction of the computer core. He's been somehow shielding himself from the ship's internal sensors, but it's somewhat more difficult to avoid my scans.
What? And you were going to notify the captain when?
When I had learned all that I could, of course.
Arden, you and me are going to have a long talk later. Dovin, to Amara.
Amara here.
I know you're not one for Kadiscot, Lieutenant, but I've got another game offer for you.
Yes, sir.
It's called Catch the Intruder Who's Crawling Through a Jeffries Tube on the Way to the Computer Core. Care to play?
Intruder alert. Intruder alert.
Yes, sir.
Glad to hear it, Lieutenant. Let's go. Dovin out. Get that pad to the captain despite what's on it. Don't wait to learn everything next time. And please, don't call her by her first name. Any last words of wisdom for me, Arden?
Yes. Don't ever again use the Kalmari grand opening move like you usually do in Catascot. Melissa Sharp is far too intelligent to fall for it.
Okay. Thanks.
Don't forget to seal the hatch behind you. Meet up with Michaels at Charlie and then move across to 17. I'll meet you at 20.
The intruder has to be somewhere along here. Now that we've saved the section, there should be no way out.
Then stop talking and they won't hear you coming.
Aye, sir. Roll to Amara.
What now?
Sir, we just cleared 16 Charlie and Michael saw something. He's circling around and I'm following.
Take it slow. There's nowhere to go now except to me. So just keep moving carefully.
Yes, sir.
Stop right there. Stop. I won't ask again. Alright. I'll take that as a surrender. Now, let's have a look at you. What are you doing here?
Did you get him?
I'm not really sure what I've got yet. It's a human boy.
It's a kid?
As I said. The question is, why is a child in the Jeffries tubes? Do you have anything to say for yourself? Cancel the alert. I'll take him to sickbay. Maybe the doctor can get something out of him.
Well, by all my scans, the boy is perfectly healthy. He just isn't talking. At all.
No idea who he is?
None.
Computer, identify the child in sickbay.
Unknown.
Computer, what is the current crew and passenger manifest for the USS Excelsior?
991.
Computer, how many persons currently aboard the USS Excelsior?
992.
A stowaway?
I just don't see how he got aboard and avoided detection. There are internal scans designed to check for stowaways before and after we leave port.
Obviously, they need updating, Ensign. Now, what have we here?
He's not talking.
Anything else?
Well, he's human, approximately 16 years old, and in generally good health except for a little malnutrition and dehydration.
You're Simon, aren't you?
Excuse me, sir?
Simon Westlake.
Yes, Mom.
Captain?
He's been missing for about 8 months. He's Commodore Westlake's son.
I remember that. How'd you get aboard the Excelsior way out at Starbase 911?
From the Austin.
The USS Austin transported supplies to Starbase 911, and we got about half a bay of medical and ration supplies from them.
I was just getting some ration packs and I ended up here.
The cargo transporter must have scooped you up with the supplies. The bio-alarm was off because some of the supplies were medical test cylinders designed to simulate biological subjects.
But how have you managed not to be picked up by our internal sensors?
If you know ships, you know where is safe when the sweeps happen.
And do you know ships?
I wanted to be an engineer.
I got the report of your disappearance, but Commodore Westlake never went into details on why. Why did you run away?
I wanted to go to the academy, be like my dad.
So why run away?
Because I can't ever do that.
Why not?
I'm sick.
Really?
My dad said I can never do this. He said I need to be on Earth so they could try to fix me.
He said you could never do what, Stowaway?
Go exploring.
I see.
Captain, if I could have a moment with you.
Of course.
He has a neurological condition called Ellerin syndrome. Not very common in humans, but it crept in with some alien genetic material in his family line. It's not life-threatening until the early 20s. Once it takes hold, however, emotional stress and severe physical strain can cause a breakdown of the chemical chains which store memory.
No wonder his father wanted to keep him out of Starfleet and at home. The stresses the Academy and service put on a person are horrific.
Some sufferers have experienced virtually complete memory breakdown. Their lives were, for all intents and purposes, over.
So why would he have run away?
You heard him. He wanted adventure. He was too young to do it with his father's blessing, so he decided to do it while he still could.
Very well. Thank you, Doctor. Mr. Amara, have quarters made up for Simon and assign someone to keep an eye on our little Houdini.
Houdini?
An entertainer from Earth. He specialized in escaping restraints.
I'll assign someone from security.
And get him cleaned up and fed. I need to get in contact with Commodore Westlake.
Captain, the report on yesterday's EPS explosion. It seems we made a standard adjustment to the Excelsior's new coolant systems during the refit, but as the first Sovereign-class vessel to use that modification, we had no way of knowing that there was a compatibility issue between the coolant relays and the EPS conduit. It wasn't designed to handle the new input. We've patched it, and I'll get the fix uploaded to the Starfleet Corps of Engineers by the time we get back from Valandria.
Very good, Lieutenant. Will we...
Are you an engineer?
Why, yes I am. The chief engineer, as a matter of fact. What's your name?
Lieutenant, this is Simon Westlake, son of the Admiral. He'll be accompanying us for the next little while, and he seems to have quite an interest in the engineering section. Think you could show him around?
Of course, sir. We'll set up an opportunity for that.
Thank you, Mr. Lorak. Dismissed. That goes for you too, young men. Mr. Amara is waiting outside.
Yes, Captain.
Helm, cool down the warp drive and go to maximum impulse. Bring us in on a slow approach towards Valandria. Let them come to us.
Aye, Captain.
Red alert!
Full scan. Active sensors. Let them know we're here.
Aye, Captain. Actively scanning the system. Captain, 3 patrol vessels at bearing 045. They're changing course to intercept with shields up and weapons charged. Intercept in 3 minutes.
So much for peace, love, and the Bolian way.
Let's do this. All hands, this is the captain. Battle stations. I repeat, all hands to battle stations.
In this episode of Star Trek Excelsior, Carlo Bandera played Kinesh Dow. Julian Bain played General Bronze. Daniel LaForce Johnson was Jack Helder. Alistair Stewart played Leo Amara. Alex Keyes was Bachik Rota. Lee Sands portrayed Simon Westlake. Emily Potter was Melissa Sharp. James Haney was Rick Hunter. Alex Keyes was John Hastings. Caitlin Henry played the computer. Nathan Listing was Admiral Parker. Gary Colbum was Ensign Therapol. Anne Maloney was Ensign Tikala. Tim Gaughan was the Starfleet voice. James Haney played Chief Lorth. Stephen Haney was Crewman Harkless. Executive produced and adapted for audio by James Haney. Co-producer Alex Keyes. Post-production Gary Colbum, James Haney, Mike Hennessy, Alex Keyes, Emily Potter, Mike Mendez, and Jimmy B. Narrator Mike Hennessy. Musical credits available on site, with special thanks to Darker Projects, Bravo Fleet, and Gene Roddenberry. No infringement intended against Star Trek, which remains the property of Paramount Pictures. Be sure to tune in for the Excelsior's next voyage, the Valandrian Expedition.
This has been an Excelsior production.